You know of the rebellion against the Empire?
Perhaps you referred to the imminent attack on your rebel fleet.
Where is the rebel base?
I didn't know there was anyone willing to stand up against the Empire.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Rebels Reaction. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
Today we're reacting to the season finale, 0 Hour, parts 1 and 2. But we'll talk about the whole thing.
Yes.
Christine, your initial reaction in one word.
Legitimizing.
Legitimizing. Sounds like one of my made-up words.
It's a real word.
Well, okay. Mine's hope.
Hope.
And I know that's a real word.
That is true.
Very much so. Okay. Legitimizing.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, this episode really legitimized the rebels' ability to fight. Like, it was a legitimate battle, and they, despite actually good Imperial planning, they came out with at least an escape. Not really a victory, but a escape with almost zero likelihood that they could do it. But they did it in a way that wasn't just like, they shouldn't have been able to do that, but because it's rebels, they always win. They had some very, very cool methods. And then also Bendu, which they couldn't have, or the Imperials couldn't have planned Bendu or foreseen Bendu. And neither could the rebels, really.
Yeah.
But his help really did it for them. And then also legitimized for me Callus's plight as an Imperial before he became Fulcrum.
Uh-huh. Because
he just seemed so incompetent all that time. But then the exact same thing happens to Thrawn, who is very clearly competent, and when Thrawn's about to go out and put in his final wave and victory, Callus just laughs like, yeah, I've been there before. You think you have this all under control.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, as that's happening, anything that went wrong really wasn't Thrawn's fault.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see where he's coming from, even though it's steeped in this pride that he has for his superior planning and all that. But
he's way, way better than Callus, but it was just a little bit more legitimizing to me at least, for the plight Callus had been in. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, especially with how much Thrawn felt he had the upper hand.
Yeah.
It was very evident.
Yeah.
He was finally like,
I have everything in control. It's all according to my game. I have it all planned, and he did, except that he knows the rebels very well, but there's still so much that he can't comprehend and can't see coming.
Yeah. I think that's probably where my word of hope comes in. Mm-hmm. It's the episode starts with a lot of hope in terms of they're finally at the point to where they're going to launch this attack that they've been planning for.
Yeah.
It seems to be coming together. General Dodonna's coming in and going to support that attack, and it's going to be the first major strike against the Empire.
Yeah, they're about to really, really launch into what they've been planning this whole time.
And that all falls apart.
Yeah, very quickly.
And by the end of the episode, in spite of major losses, in spite of their plan falling completely apart,
yeah,
they still have a level of hope. I think Kanan, more than anyone, exemplifies that at the end of the episode. I think
his last statement.
Hera is somewhat hopeful, but still just very kind of mission-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Ezra's like, we screwed things up pretty bad. And Sabine is focused on what her family is trying to accomplish.
What they need
Even
to
though
do.
she comes back and helps,
Yeah.
it's very much about what she refocuses very quickly onto what Mandalore needs done.
Yeah.
So there's really a lot of different kind of emotions that come up from a lot of different characters, and it's. I left my reaction at the end of the episode was hopeful for what's to come. With Kallus becoming kind of a part of, at least moving on with the rebels.
Yeah, joining into them instead of being working from a distance.
Yeah, and I didn't. I just kind of, it kept running through my head throughout most of the episode when we ended up watching it twice, that this was not the same sort of season finale we got last season.
Yeah.
With
that's
Twilight
true.
of the Apprentice.
Yeah.
And I think that was sort of an expectation I had in my head coming in. And this is going to be this epic showdown between the rebels and Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it was a showdown between them, but they set it up to where Thrawn was so much in control and so superior and so well prepared that it's something we haven't seen in any of Rebels to this point, which I think is a really nice shift. But it was the pendulum swung so far the other direction from
him having every single thing in line.
Yeah, from the Rebels doing ridiculous things, as Kallus alluded to be able to escape when he had them in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
And then swinging all the way to Thrawn's not making any bad moves. It's
outside influences.
Poor choices by other people.
Yeah.
Or
Constantine.
Yes, Constantine specifically. And that whole interplay is something really interesting that I want to get into as well.
Yeah.
But if things had gone according to his plan, he would have had victory. They would have he would have captured everyone he was supposed to capture, and it all fell into place. And yet, for as much planning as he puts in, it's not in the end in his control.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting dynamic that's created with Bendu, especially in this episode, because we haven't really seen much more than Bendu kind of playing this...
Giving advice.
Yeah, giving advice or saying cryptic things. Even when Maul comes in and he kind of, just as he says time and time again, he's the one in the middle.
Yeah, he doesn't pick a side.
There was no overwhelming emotion within what his interactions. And if anything, it was more on the lighter side of an emotional reaction, laughter most of the time, but never something that really changed towards something that would be fearful.
Yeah, and no actual action until he suddenly gets angry, and then in this episode has an extremely emotional response.
Yeah, so let's get a little organized here. Let's jump into the big three and kind of just run through the big plot points of this episode, or this 2-episode arc, and kind of just break down what we felt were major turning points within the episode. I'd say number one, Thrawn lays his trap. Kallus thinks he's being sneaky with the mouse droid, which I love seeing the actual use of a mouse droid. I've always kind of wondered what they actually do.
Yeah.
And he uses it as a spying device.
Pretty good one.
Yeah. And yet Thrawn seems he's laying the trap even for Callus as he's laying the trap for the rebels. So he knows Callus is probably listening. He puts these safeguards in place to make it look like he's trying to make sure no one's listening.
Yeah.
And gives the information he wants to give, but nothing more. Mm-hmm. And Callus tries to send that out. Of course, Thrawn is there. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was kind of like, crap.
Yeah.
Callus is done for.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be killed.
And yet they keep him around, which is kind of interesting. I think Thrawn
wants to deal with him afterward.
Well,
wants to deal with him in his real way.
I think this episode brought out the pride that Thrawn has.
Yeah.
Even though his back and forth with Constantine is about glory, with Constantine wanting it, and then when Callus says, battling over glory, Thrawn says, no. All I require is victory for my emperor, which is an interesting line that's his motivation.
I'm really excited to read Thrawn so I can understand his connection with Palpatine.
Yeah.
Especially after reading Aftermath and hearing just that tiny little blip of his past.
Yeah, what his interactions.
Sorry, continue.
But there's this interplay between immense pride in his preparation, immense pride in his ability, versus the singular focus of doing right by the Emperor.
It was almost fanatical the way he said it.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's the extremes of the Empire as we're getting more and more into this new canon and the various books we've read. And I mean, you look at Lost Stars and the elements of loyalty in that, and trying to excuse away so many things that you might not otherwise for the Empire. And I think the backstory of Thrawn is going to be immensely important into understanding his loyalty to Palpatine and how that really works. And really, until the very end of the episode, he is in control.
Yeah.
In spite of others acting idiotically. And that brings us to number 2. The rebels try to escape. Yeah. And they've done it time and time again throughout this season and previous seasons. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We see these it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't say it. What's the class of Star Destroyer that pulls the interdictor? Interdictor. Yeah, I was trying to say interductor, and I knew that wasn't it. Interdictor Star Destroyers are cruisers that have the gravity wells that pull ships out of hyperspace, which is just
intense.
Crazy technology, crazy just ability there, and kind of makes me wonder why we haven't seen more of those before.
Yeah, why don't they show up in every battle? That would pretty much make it impossible to beat them.
Yeah. And maybe they only had so many, maybe it was...
Now they have 2 less.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, 1 less.
2.
2 less, yeah.
Destroyed both.
Yeah.
Another tangent sidetrack. Death Troopers in Rebels.
So awesome.
Yeah. Super cool. I was a little disappointed that they didn't talk at all.
Oh, okay.
I think in addition to their physical appearance being different than Stormtroopers, something that very much set them apart and kind of threw me in Rogue One, but I would have liked to see a little bit of is their communication, how it just is that much more garbled.
Oh.
And you can't really... It wasn't so much I wanted to say something in particular, but just...
Want to hear something from them.
Yes. Not only the visual stimuli of that, but an auditory one as well.
Yeah.
So back to the rebels escaping as number 2, or trying to escape. They try to leave Chopper Base, and that doesn't work. Their ships are getting shot down like they don't have shields,
Yeah, they're doing nothing to protect themselves, so they're just kind of sitting there waiting. I mean, they have some of the X-Wings flying around, but...
Well, they didn't have any X-Wings. It was all A-Wings and Y-Wings.
Sorry, my bad.
It is your bad.
They have starfighters
that's
flying
a good
around.
general term.
But yeah, they weren't shooting back. They didn't seem to have any shields. They were just sitting ducks right there.
Yeah, and for me, that was really something that withdrew from the intensity of that scene.
Yeah.
Because if it had actually been fighting back and forth and not just kind of sitting ducks with the fighters flying around, it would have felt more like the battle in Return of the Jedi, which I think is...
Yeah.
I need to watch Rogue One a few more times,
yeah.
But the best space battle, at least in the original trilogy, is definitely the end of Return of the Jedi in terms of all-encompassing ships and attack and all of that.
Just chaos.
And that's kind of what I felt like this should have been.
Mm-hmm. Except that it was mostly one-sided.
And it was completely... And I think the point of that, from a storytelling standpoint, is the power that Thrawn exudes.
Yeah, it definitely shows the helplessness of the rebels next to Thrawn's empire, essentially.
But I think it just went a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Constantine is an idiot
again,
and Sato decides that he needs to take control of the situation in whatever way he can, and
which is a huge sacrifice.
His idea is to crash the carrier into the interdictor.
Yeah.
And Constantine totally helps him out with that.
Yeah. Totally plays right into it, despite Thrawn telling him just minutes before, basically, this is what they're about to do, don't fall into it.
Yeah. So, it's really... With Sato out of the picture, this is another rabbit trail. I wonder if this is an opportunity for Hera to get a promotion that we'll later hear about, or at least a path towards that.
And that we heard about already, sort of, in Rogue One.
Yes. So that there's... Back on track. I feel like there's a lot of rabbit trails that we can
Well, this was a really complicated episode.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I think it setting up so many different pieces and aspects that we'll see, I'm assuming we'll see in Season 4, that are really going to, I think, continue to splinter the story arcs of all of our characters.
Yeah.
And make it pretty interesting. That it's the rebels trying to escape, their inability to do so, and then Ezra finally gets out.
Which, the second time we watched it, I wondered, why didn't a few more ships take that chance too?
Because that was the plan.
For them not to?
Yeah, it's Ezra's trying to get out to get help, and everyone else is going to stay there and try to defend the
base while they can.
I guess.
To an extent, I get it, but also the whole point is to escape, so why not have, like, one of the frigates ready to hop right behind him?
Because that would have been less dramatic.
Of course.
Defeated the point. So Ezra calls Mon Mothma. She's like,
basically, this is a real bummer, but...
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, bud. Can't help
do
you.
it.
Yeah, it sucks. And I think... I wish, especially on the dovetailing off of the release of Rogue One, there was just it was a different kind of movie, a different kind of emotion, and there was actual sadness when people and ships blew up and died.
Yeah.
I know this is a kid show; it's rated Y7, but it was just kind of like. Ezra watches a cruiser blow up and says, well, I hope Kanan's having better luck.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like,
what?
That's a lot of people that just died, and that's That's all that they're saying about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just,
Seemed like it should be heavier, more, I don't know.
it probably should have been, given the context. But then remembering this is supposed to be a kid show.
We're full-grown adults.
I don't know about that.
Sort of.
Sort of. I just never want to grow up.
Aw, my Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Continue.
Let's get to number 3 finally. Mandalore and Bendu to the rescue.
Yeah.
Ezra gets to Mandalore after Mon Mothma says, "Can't help.
Yeah.
Organa was right. We weren't ready." And he tries to convince Sabine, and it just takes some back and forth and can bring just a few Mandalorians and a couple ships.
Can't do a whole lot.
But it's better than nothing.
Certainly is.
And they have a plan for that.
Yeah. With Sabine, things can happen.
Yeah, and they're able to take out the other interdictor ship, which the way in which they did that I found believable. I found a novel way of attacking, and I think it kind of continued. That helped build momentum for that space battle.
Yeah.
And made it a little bit more engaging overall. And
yeah, I'd say that.
And capped it pretty well.
Seemed legitimate.
Yes. Even though the cheesy sort of interplay with Ezra's suit and just the goofiness of it with the bubble helmet.
Yeah.
But
little thrusters.
Yeah, it was what it was. And the rebels are eventually able to escape because of their actions. Mm-hmm. Let's kind of jump back in the episode timeline to Bendu. Kanan, as they're finding out that Thrawn knows of their plans and is probably coming to get them, that he's going to go out and ask Bendu for help. Mm-hmm. Bendu keeps saying,
I'm in the middle.
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle.
I don't fight your petty fights.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting. He always calls Kanan by his full name, Kanan Jarrus.
Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight.
And including that title, which I think may be something that is speaking to something in the future. His lines, and I think we could probably spend an entire episode just talking about what he says in those few moments.
Yeah.
But he continues to say that he's in the middle. He's both light. He's both dark.
Yeah.
He has no interest in fighting. He was here long before Kanan and the rebels. He'll be here long after them.
Yeah.
And then he kind of signs off from that interaction with, as he's evaporating into the clouds.
Yeah, well, he's.
I follow the will of the Force.
Yeah. Well, also in that, this was one of the most interesting parts to me of his whole speech was after Kanan calls him a coward. That's when he just blows up into this like storm creature, and he says, maybe all you Jedi and all you are supposed to die. Maybe that's what the Force wants, and I serve the will of the Force. And that was the first time in my memory that we've seen an in-between light and dark, or just strictly Force creature that actually is tending toward the dark side. Because in most things, it's like, oh yeah, the Force is balanced between the light and dark, yet the light always wins.
Yeah.
Like, you want the light to win, you want the good guys to win, and defeats the evil. But if it's true balance, then it would be half and half. But Bendu actually shows the dark side in him, and applies it in this case.
And we kind of talked about that when in Twin Suns, with Maul's sort of interactions and talking about Luke being the true chosen one, and but what does balance really mean, and will he bring balance to the Force, and the whole prophecy. So there's even a lot there that we could go into, But yeah, he is very much playing this middle ground.
Yeah.
And as Thrawn is bringing his ground forces and the rebels are trying to fend them off, and I found it kind of cool that, or just reminiscent, that Rex was planting mines and things, and it just felt very Clone Wars.
Yeah, I will say, at one point when we were watching it, I was like, this feels like a Clone Wars battle. There's like so much going on, lots of actual battle.
Yeah, and they do it as best they can, but it's obviously not enough when you've got a bunch of AT-ATs bearing down on you.
Which, one thought, why didn't Kanan cut the legs of all of them as he was flying through?
I don't know. And they must have upgraded the armor by the time they get to Hoth, because it wasn't like Luke was... He used his lightsaber to cut underneath one and throw in a grenade, but it wasn't like he was chopping them down at the knees.
Yeah.
So, like, I get his entrance, his dramatic entrance there.
Yeah.
But again...
And that was very reminiscent of Anakin. He did stuff like that.
Yeah. So, they're unable to defend themselves in the end. Thrawn walks in, smug as all get out. And is, I'll accept your surrender now.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he does have them surrounded by his death troopers, and really what could they have done except that he doesn't see this Force creature coming.
Yeah, and the storm clouds are coming, and Kanan's starting to kind of cower. Mm-hmm. Thrawn's line, and what are you, afraid of the storm,
Yeah,
Jedi?
you fear the storm, Jedi Knight? Which a lot of people wouldn't notice that he's fearing the storm, but because Thrawn pays that close attention and knows him very well, he recognizes that Kanan fears the storm, which shows partly his ability to read, but also his pride in that he still doesn't see a point to being afraid of something like a storm.
Well, and as soon as the storm starts
talking,
well, not even before it talks, it's striking lightning closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
And then he says, what Jedi devilry is this? And that was an interesting way of wording that.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see reminiscent of Han Solo's hokey religion comments.
Oh, yeah.
To an understanding and sort of not necessarily a respect, but a knowledge of Force wielding. Mm-hmm. And from Thrawn's standpoint,
he does understand culture a lot more than most. So he may see Jedi as a culture, but he obviously doesn't understand the Force completely. But he calls it devilry, which that word to me pointed out even more his perspective, his fanaticism for the Empire.
Yeah.
Because obviously the devil is the evil one, so he sees the Jedi using the Force as evil against him and those who he serves.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's all before the cloud starts talking at him and grows eyes, which I thought was super intimidating. Yeah. And now both sides of this battle are focused on it. And Bendu starts talking, and he's like, leave, I bring death. And then shoots lightning
at everything.
Yeah, and the first couple things that it hits are a couple AT-ATs. I just keep going back and forth between AT-AT and AT-AT. I hear Jeremy and Devin in my head giving me crap for saying AT-AT. So thanks, guys. The lightning shoots through two AT-ATs. And my first thought was Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. When they open up the Ark, the scary ghost angel ladies are floating around and then go nuts. And then lightning comes out and shoots through everybody at once. That was just... The imagery seemed very reminiscent of that. And I think that's... I don't know if that was intentional, but... It was very much kind of this, because Bendu has been built up as this sort of spiritualized character.
Yeah.
And kind of being in the middle, whatever that really ends up meaning.
Mm-hmm.
He really just seems like an introvert that wants everybody to go away.
Just leave me alone.
Just kind of. But he zaps them all with lightning, and that similar imagery seemed very spiritualized.
That's a good point, because with the Ark, obviously that's a highly spiritual object, and the whole point is that it's God's wrath, or it's spiritual wrath, but God's wrath. And in this episode, it's the Force being used to pour down wrath on those who are needing judgment, I guess.
Or just extinction, whatever it might be. And it's I found that interplay very interesting, and the fact that they were able to shoot down Bendu from the clouds.
Yeah, that was surprising to me.
As after the rebels escape, that they're
By
able
the way,
to.
And Bendu's shooting at Kanan too.
Yeah, which he's pissed
Makes
at
sense,
him.
yeah.
He's super mad at him, and then mad at Thrawn, and the interaction between Bendu right at the end and Thrawn, I think was for me the most powerful moment of the entire season finale, in that he's talking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
Bendu is.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, like, you can't kill me. You don't know what's going on. Yeah, you might shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
You might have taken me down from my cloudness, whatever that really was, and almost reminiscent of the line, "I'll become more powerful than you can even imagine."
Yeah.
And then the shots get into close up.
Yeah, those are really cool shots.
Extreme close up.
Mm-hmm.
Super extreme close up.
Yeah, just the eyeballs.
And it's, you can't see it, but I can. And Thrawn says, "What do you see?"
Mm-hmm. And you can tell he believes what's happening.
Yeah. And
he fears it.
Yes, and that's the first time we see Thrawn with any level of fear.
Yeah.
The entire time we've known this character.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a super powerful moment.
It was.
And it's setting up Thrawn for season 4, which, given what we know from other sources within canon, I wonder how much of a part he's going to play in season 4, or if he's going to be sent off on some other missions by Palpatine
to explore the unknown regions.
Yes, and that's we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens, but that's that first moment of fear in Bendu's line of, "Your defeat will be like many."
I see your defeat like many arms encircling you in a cold embrace.
Yeah, that was just super interesting imagery,
chilling.
and chilling. I'll be really interested to see what that ends up being.
Yeah, what his defeat actually is.
Yeah, and the rebels, and that's where Thrawn's arc ends for the season.
Well, I do want to point out, I thought it was really interesting when Thrawn, we see that glimpse of fear, that moment of fear, and suddenly he just shoots. He is looking at Bendu, becomes afraid, and just shoots. And that's such a human response, to see something that truly terrifies us and just attack without understanding it.
Yeah.
And Thrawn usually takes a step back and does everything he can to understand everything that he's facing, but he just has a gut response, and that was really cool and really humanizing.
As that impulse that he's been so under control for so long, that now we suddenly see him out of control.
He just breaks.
And it's interesting that that's where his arc ends for the season.
Yeah.
And we jump back to the rebels, and we get this cool kind of, it felt like it's a shot where you don't stop the camera, but you continue to run through
Oh.
various settings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all one continuous shot. And we kind of got that, and just got lines from each of the each of the Ghost crew as we kind of went through the ship, and we conclude with Ezra and Kanan, and that's setting up where we might be in season 4. But we get little tidbits of information and motivations and where characters might be going.
Mm-hmm.
Sabine going back to Mandalore. The rest of the Ghost crew seems to be moving towards Yavin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it ends. With this level of hope, especially with Kanan's final words.
Yeah.
And yet in the face of disappointment.
Yeah. Very, very severe disappointment, but still, as Star Wars tends to, disappointment ends with a glimmer of hope.
Yeah. And we get some information that had been speculated on for quite some time between Kanan and Hera.
Yeah! Finally!
There does seem to be some sort of love interest there,
Mm-hmm.
even though they've done their best
To hold back.
to hide it.
Yeah.
That they're the family
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit
Love.
more encompassing, I think.
Yeah.
With some of those.
Those statements.
Yeah.
But also, I thought it was going to be more surprising for Kanan that she said it, and it wasn't really a surprise to him. Or he didn't act surprised. And when he came back, it wasn't like a, wow, you like confessed your love to me. It was just a, I'm back. Let's go. The family's back together.
Well, I took it as that they had already had something going on.
That's what I'm saying. Is I wasn't sure if they had like all this time been pretending they didn't have interest in each other, or just everybody else. But it seems like there actually has been a relationship. They've just hidden it as much as they could.
Yeah.
So exciting! Except we know what happens when Jedi fall in love. Not good things.
But he's a different sort of Jedi.
That's true. He's not a normal Jedi.
So that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Lots of kind of miniature cliffhangers as far as side story arcs, major story arcs of Thrawn really having a sense of fear of his ultimate fate and a vulnerability within that. Bendu, and now this kind of it feels like a larger opportunity and opening towards this middle ground within the Force, where for so long it's been dark or light.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see more of that fleshed out, especially in the run-up to Episode 8, because I have this feeling that that's gonna be something that's really fleshed out within that film.
The area between dark and light. Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to get a really cool and new perspective of the Force with the rest of this trio of movies. Trilogy. Gosh, sorry. With obviously Kylo Ren, his flipping back and forth, and with Luke, who knows what he's been doing all this time, but there's probably going to be more complexity to him than just straight light.
More than likely.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a show about Rebels.
Sorry.
So we'll finish talking about Rebels, and we can speculate about Episode 8 later.
Just Star Wars.
I know. A lot to talk about. There's a double episode, hour-long
So good.
Season finale. Our show's about it, double its normal length as well.
Sorry, guys. Unless that's good.
It's a good thing. People listen, right? At least someone listens. Final thoughts for the season finale of Season 4. Season 3.
Season 3.
Season 4 yet.
My first viewing, it felt more intense. Some things felt more intense than my second viewing. Like, my first viewing, the overall battle felt more intense. The second viewing, I saw it more as one-sided. But also second viewing, I just understood more certain things were going on that were very intense.
Yeah.
So overall, it was a very intense episode, and the things that were maybe less believable or seemed like were poor choices are easy for me to overlook.
Okay.
Like the fact that they didn't jump when there was an opportunity to jump.
Yeah.
Yours?
Okay. I thought.
Sorry.
A strong season finale, I think, didn't have the epic feeling that the previous season with Twilight of the Apprentice had, because there was just this showdown that, I guess it was similar in the fact that it was a showdown that had been anticipated the majority of the season, or at least the second half. But this is a showdown of characters that we've only known for the Ghost Crew in, 3 seasons now, Thrawn in 1, and there's definitely weight behind that final battle, at least of the season, versus with Twilight of the Apprentice, we had, 6-7 seasons of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And just this growing relationship, Padawan and Master relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin, then Vader, and so there's just a lot more behind that story, and I think the conflict between Jedi and Sith carries a little bit more weight within the Star Wars story. So that was, in my mind, coming into this episode, really kind of an expectation that it would be on that same sort of emotional tone and level of epicness.
Years worth of build-up.
And it didn't end up doing that for me. And the first time watching it was kind of like, that was a little disappointing.
Oh, really?
The second time, it was, okay, I can see more of what's going on here, a little bit more perspective, and I get it. I enjoyed the episode. I don't want that to be misconstrued, but I was a little bit disappointed. And that's okay, because my expectations were unrealistic. But I think it sets up some very interesting things going into season 4, and I'm pretty excited to see what that ends up looking like.
Yeah.
So
can't wait.
That'll wrap up this episode, this extended episode of Rebels Reaction. This is not the final episode of this season of Rebels Reaction. We will do at least one more show as a entire season recap, and we'll just kind of highlight some of the things we really enjoyed, some of the things that the story arcs that best stuck out to us, and maybe look forward to season 4 in some ways that we haven't already. Be sure to check us out online at unmistakably.starwars.com. We're on Twitter at unmistakably.sw, facebook.com/unmistakably.starwars. If you like this show or any of the shows that we produce here at Unmistakably Star Wars, go ahead and head over to iTunes and give us at least a rating, if not a review as well. We would really appreciate that. And for this episode of Rebels Reaction, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
Until next time, may the Force be with you.